All right. So this year we're gonna walk through a whole bunch of stuff together. I'm happy that you guys are here. I'm excited. But right now we're gonna jump into Donald Trump's hush money sentencing. Right? Before we start, I want to let you guys know that this is Donald Trump speaking before he actually gets sentenced. We're also gonna listen to the judge's remarks. But when you hear Donald Trump, I want you to pay attention to something that just bugs me out, drives me crazy. Whenever Donald Trump speaks, he speaks in like super hyperbolic language. He always uses hyperbole. Everything is the biggest ever, the most amazing. It was a terrific tragedy. It was an amazing flood. These are the biggest fires that we've ever seen in American history. Everything is just filled with hyperbole. And it drives me crazy. It always feels like the student that is trying to get to the word count of the essay. It's like, just speak, bro. But I'm not gonna go too crazy. We're gonna listen to the hush money sentencing, and he gets to speak before he gets sentenced. So this is what this is.
Thank you. Would your client like to be heard?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system. This was a case that Alvin Bragg did not want to bring. He thought it was, from what I read and from what I hear, inappropriately handled before he got there. A gentleman from a law firm came in and acted as a district attorney. And that gentleman, from what I heard, was a criminal or almost criminal in what he did. It was very inappropriate. It was somebody involved with my political opponent. Part of the records that we're talking about, they're saying, I just noticed where he said I was falsifying business records. Well, the falsification of business records, as they said, was calling a legal expense in the books where everybody could see them, a legal expense. In other words, that legal fees or legal expense were put down as legal expense by accountants. They weren't put down.
Also, he always finds a way to throw somebody under the bus. But before we get to that, right, I just looked it up. I was wondering if Alvin Bragg is the person that actually brought the charges forth, because what Donald Trump just said was that Alvin Bragg didn't even want to bring these charges forth. So, Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, brought charges against former President Donald Trump related to alleged hush money payments during 2016 campaign. These charges stem from an investigation into payments made to an adult film actress, Stormy Daniels, which was allegedly intended to suppress claims about an affair and potentially violating campaign finance laws. So it was Alvin Bragg. But what do you expect? But let's keep on going.
Down by me. They were put down by accountants. I didn't call them construction, concrete work. I didn't call them electrical work. I didn't call them any. They called a legal fee or a legal expense. And for this, I got indicted. It's incredible, actually. Now, if you look, my attorney alluded to it, the top legal scholars and legal pundits in this country, the ones that are quoted all the time on television, that are making their views felt, and highly respected people, have said, virtually everyone that I know of, I haven't seen any to the contrary, not one. And none of these people are not exactly friends of mine, to put it mildly. But they all said this is a case that should have never been brought. It's an injustice of justice. Very respected Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Judge David Rifkin, a wonderful man who just passed away, by the way, Greg Jarrett, Ellie Honig from CNN, of all places. CNN said that, Paul Ingrassia, Alan Dershowitz, they all said this is not a case that should be brought. It's not, think about it, legal expenses are down as legal expenses, and I get indicted for business records. Everybody should be so accurate. It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation. so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in.
All right. So I'm doing research while I'm listening because I hate to just like hear stuff and then wonder if it's true. I need to dig in, right? So I'm looking up like why weren't these things considered legal expenses. So the nature of the payments is one of the reasons, right? Falsifying allegations and linked to campaign finance violations, right? So the payments were reportedly intended to silence individuals such as an adult film actress Stormy Daniels about alleged affair, right? Now, you might say that he didn't want it to become a legal issue, so he paid it off, so that was a legal expense. That's what his base will say. But that's not how you that's not something you can classify as a legal expense. Uh while they were recorded as legal fees, prosecutors argued that their actual purchase was to influence the 2016 election, preventing damaging stories from emerging, which made them campaign related expenses. Now, the second thing is that falsification allegations. Prosecutors claim that the payments were intentionally misclassified in Trump's organization records to conceal their true purpose, which constitutes falsification of business records under New York law. Clear as day. And linked to campaign finance violations. If the payments were made to benefit Donald Trump's presidential campaign, they could be considered unreported campaign contributions. By disguising them as legal fees, it was alleged that Donald Trump sought to avoid the scrutiny that would accompany properly disclosing them as campaign-related expenses. So the legal standard under New York law, falsifying business records becomes a felony as opposed to a misdemeanor if it is done with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. Prosecutors argued that the false entries were made to cover up violations of campaign finance law and to prevent the public from learning potential damaging information during the election period. So that's what this whole thing is about. Just in case you don't follow politics or whatever, that's what this is about. We're going to keep going.
Your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history, and won, as you know, all 7 swing states, won conclusively all 7 swing states.
What does that matter?
And won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes, and they've been watching your trial.
All right. What does that matter right now in the courtroom? Is he just trying to tell the judge, like, I'm so great, this stuff just has to go away because the people need me? Or is he saying it for a specific reason related to the hush money sentencing? Because the amount of votes you got has nothing to do with anything right now. He just talks to talk. To me, he's just trying to get to that word count, and it drives me crazy. But let's go.
So they understood it. I wasn't allowed to use the lawyer-client privilege or the reliance on counsel. I had a lawyer that made this deal, and he admitted that. And he was also a totally discredited person. We weren't allowed to use the information from the Southern District that totally discredited him. It wasn't allowed to be put in. And that was terrible, unbelievable. And this is a man who's got no standing. He's been disbarred on other matters, unrelated. And he was allowed to talk as though he...
All right, I have to go back because I need to know who he's talking about and if they actually got disbarred.
Or the reliance on counsel. I had a lawyer that made this deal, and he admitted that. And he was also a totally discredited person. We weren't allowed to use the information from the Southern District that totally discredited him. It wasn't allowed to be put in. And that was terrible, unbelievable. And this is a man who's got no standing. He's been disbarred on other matters, unrelated. And he was allowed to talk as though he were George Washington. But he's not George Washington. He shouldn't have been allowed. The Southern District did a book of approximately 28 pages where I've never seen anything like it. They excoriated him. You were.
So the person that he's talking about is Michael Cohen. He's not saying Michael Cohen's name. To me, that feels like what they do in hip hop. In hip hop, you got to beef with somebody. You don't say their name because you say that they're irrelevant. So right now, he's talking about Michael Cohen, who was considered at one point Donald Trump's fixer, right? So Michael Cohen, formerly personal attorney of Donald Trump, his fixer, Michael Cohen was disbarred, but he was disbarred for tax evasion, campaign finance violations, which is because he was trying to fix this situation for Trump, and lying to Congress. Those seem like things to get disbarred for. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm no expert, but it seems like it makes sense for a person to be disbarred. So Cohen's disbarment was automatic under New York state law, which mandates disbarment for any lawyer convicted of a felony. And birds of a feather.
Wouldn't let it be put into evidence. So he was able to testify as a witness, and I think it's a disgrace to the system. I was under a gag order. I'm the first president in history that was under a gag order where I couldn't talk about aspects of the case that are very important. I guess I'm still under, so probably I won't do it now. I assume I'm still under a gag order. But the fact is that...
That's scary to me, right? The fact that he doesn't know whether he was still under a gag order lets you know how much freedom... You know what? I'm not even going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to pull back. But if you're under a gag order, you would know it. Because you would want to obey it so that you don't get in trouble. But if you don't obey it, and you don't know if you're still under a gag order, it's because you believe that you can't get in trouble. And this is why we're here.
I'm totally innocent. I did nothing wrong. They talk.
Totally innocent. Not just innocent. Totally innocent. He did nothing wrong. But yet there's 34 counts. And I know a lot of people are like questioning 34 counts, right? But yo, I don't know if you saw, and maybe I'll do like a video about this where Ice-T was pulled over in a parking lot, right? It might sound unrelated. Just follow me, right? Ice-T was pulled over. He was driving. He pulled in like to the side of a parking lot. And the police officer and him had an exchange. And the exchange sort of like went off the rails a little bit. It started to be a back and forth between Ice-T and the police officer. And the police officer felt like Ice-T was being rude to him. So he gave him 4 tickets. Now the 4 tickets were like, you don't have your registration, you don't have your license, you don't have your this, you don't have your that. But it could have gone down to 2 tickets, or it could have been excused and been no tickets based on the way that the police officers have discretion in those situations, right? You either let me go and give me a warning, or you give me the ticket. Now, one of the officers pulled up, a supervisor, recognized who Ice-T was, and he was trying to take it down from 4 tickets to 2 tickets. But the other officer felt like, nah, he disrespected me. We're not doing that. He's gonna pay for how he spoke to me, right? It was basically a contest, right? And I feel the same way about this. It's like, yo, listen, like, this doesn't have to be, of course, it doesn't have to be 34 counts. But he's always trying people. He's constantly trying people. And the corruption was getting out of hand. Now, a lot of people say he's not corrupt, the justice system is corrupt. But if you're paying attention to this stuff, you're seeing all of the people that were part of his cabinet and his campaign and all of this stuff are gone now. He started with all new people. And this is why I don't understand how people can get with this dude. Because what's happening is that he has to start over with all new people who more than likely he won't get along with because he's hard to get along with. Let's just go.
Talk about business records, and the business records were extremely accurately counted. I had nothing to do with them. Any of that was done by an accountant or a bookkeeper who I think gave very credible testimony and was corroborated by everybody that was asked. And with all that's happening in our country today, with a city that's burning to the ground, one of our largest, most important cities burning to the ground with.
All right. So bringing LA into this doesn't make any sense. But also, see how easily he throws people under the bus. I didn't do it. My accountant is the one that put legal expenses. Why am I in trouble? That's like, y'all don't respect that because y'all don't respect snitching. I know y'all don't. So I don't understand how you guys follow this dude so comfortably and think it's okay. We'll get to that. But let me find out why he's talking about LA, because that's a whole nother topic.
With wars that are uncontrollably going on, with all of the problems of inflation and attacks on countries and all of the horrible things that are going on, I got indicted over calling a legal expense a legal expense. It was called a legal expense. I just want to say I think it's an embarrassment to New York, and New York has a lot of problems, but this is a great embarrassment. I believe that this and other cases.
All right. If you can't tell, I'm from New York. You can hear it, right? But I don't know why I'm getting in trouble for calling a legal expense a legal expense. Number one, it's because it's not classified as a legal expense. So it wasn't a legal expense. You could say it, and he likes to do this. He likes to say things so many times that it becomes the truth. If I keep saying it, it'll become true. If I keep saying it, there's a segment of people that will believe it, and it will become the truth, and they'll repeat it. And then when they repeat it, it's like me repeating it. And then my whole MAGA audience repeats it. And then they used it in debates against other people that have political discourse. And it just keeps getting repeated, and then it becomes the truth. But it's not the truth. So what is he really is? Oh man! All right, I'm sorry. We're gonna get into it.
Cases that were brought, as you know, the DOJ is very much involved in this case. It's because that's the political opponent they're talking about. The DOJ is very involved. You have a gentleman sitting right there from the DOJ who was from the DOJ's office. He was also involved with the New York State Attorney General's case. And he went from there to here. He went around and did what he had to do. He got them to move on me. But in the meantime, I won the election in a massive landslide. And the people of this country understand what's gone on. This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to exclaim that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
All right. So now he's about to be sentenced. And we're going to clip this and we're going to make a second video about it. But I need you guys to understand before he gets sentenced, before we go to the video about him being sentenced. He's creating his own definition of what happened. He's creating He's creating his own definitions on what has happened, which makes it so that he could basically display some type of cognitive dissonance and say, I didn't do that because basically I had legal expenses for legal expenses. But no, legally, they're not classified as legal expenses because you use them in order to hush someone so that you could run a successful campaign. And then in this case, it became hush money, and it became it's not a legal expense. So he could say that until he's blue in the face. It is not a legal expense. Woosah. Also, nah, we'll say that for the next video.